Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you in the doorway, please come in and find a seat. Get yourself settled. We have a lot to chat about today, so we want to get started right on time. So please come in. There's lots of seats up front here. So welcome to the annual campus address of the Vice President Research, the University of Saskatchewan. We are super excited that you are here with us today. Those of you in person, those of you watching via live stream, and those of you who will be watching the recording after, thank you for taking the time today. My name is Tanya Warchenko, and I work in the Office of the VP Research. And I am excited to start this session off with something very auspicious and beautiful. So I'm just going to say a couple of comments and then hand it to some very talented folks. So, Dean McNeill composed an original piece of music for the research mission at the University of Saskatchewan. Thank you, Dean. The piece is titled Inventio, and I'm going to say a couple of comments about it that Dean provided me with. So he said, I composed this piece by adding more and more constraints. Okay, so the piece must be short for brass and percussion. It moves from floaty to exciting, virtuosic at the end, inspirational, slightly descriptive of on the path within the journey of discovering or creating something new. Lots of motion at the end. The method of applying more and more self-constraints is a tool used by many artists over the millennium to ignite their creativity. And then he shared a quote from Leonardo da Vinci that art lives from constraints and dies from freedom. So now, because I think it's important to acknowledge the people who will be performing this piece of music, I'm going to read some names. So, conductor, Darren Olerking. Composer, arranger, and on trumpet, Dean McNeill. Up on the upper deck, the trumpet players, Aaron Bickert, Hannah Hashi, Sam Boyd, Daly Haas, Rochelle Wright, Ronan Inkster. All right, the trombones, Dawn Schmidt, Elizabeth Morton, Keegan Isaac, John Tate, Don McLean Bellick, tuba, Gary Doig, French horn section, Sam Demat. Oh, I'm going to do that. Sorry, Sam. No, it's not all good. Sam Dimiterico? Sam Dimiterico. Sorry about that. Arlene Shiplet. Stacy Mortensen Spokes. And percussion. Okay, percussion, Daryl Bickert. And Andra Wist. So with that, I turn it over to Darren.
Colleagues, we have lots of chairs at the front. Please come up. Yeah, I'm talking to you at the back. Yeah. Yes, to you. Well, this was amazing. Dean, thank you very much to your intellect and creativity. And this is the first time I'm hearing this music. It's wonderful how you enrich everybody's life on this campus in the city and in Canada with the work you do. And really, thank you very much. Thank you. Colleagues, I'm really humbled by your presence in such large number today to talk about the ARSA at our university. We are gathering on Treaty 6 lands, as we know, homeland of the Métis. At this university, we have reaffirmed our commitment to continue to build better relationships with each other, and specifically when it comes to embracing the national project around truth and reconciliation. It is not simply an accident that we have about 17-18% of the student body of Indigenous students. We are also really doing a great job in recruiting and retaining scholars who work in partnership with the Indigenous communities. 3 examples from last year: Canada researchers Dr. Bidwell, Dr. Bradford, and Dr. Bobby Henry. And we continue to take self-responsibility to learn about the history of this land and the contribution and the knowledge of the ancestors of this land. And we continue to work with elders and the knowledge keepers at this university, and colleagues like Candice Vasakis Lafferty and many others who are with us on this journey as this university leads the way in this country when it comes to finding ways to work with each other in a very respectful way. That includes examples like the first policy in this country on Indigenous identification, DEBOAN, that Dr. Irene and her team developed over the last year and a half. So today we are going to talk about ARSA at University of Saskatchewan, and then break it into the priorities, and then we will look into about the next stage that we have. Let's take a minute to read the vision. It will take you about 20 seconds. Let's read for a moment what it looks like. This is the vision in which our university planning is rooted, whether it was renewing the dream many years ago or today one of the most compelling university plan that you will come across at any Canadian university, the University Plan 2025, that talks about being the university the world needs, be what the world needs. That is the plan which is really galvanizing all the intellect and creativity at this university towards that goal that we have set ourselves. And when we have a plan like that, there's no doubt we will have a trajectory of growth, which in a simplest way we can measure by the number of dollars that we bring in at University of Saskatchewan to support our ARSA enterprise. You can see the direction of the arrow, it's going up. Many of us who have been around at University of Saskatchewan for 20, 30 years, it feels like yesterday. We used to bring in $50, $70 million per year, and here we touched and breached $300 million mark last year. And this is not coming out of the blue. It is product of intentionality and our collective work to really find a place for our scholars to be the best around the globe. And we have quite a bit of headspace to go. And then there are numbers. With this enterprise, we have close to 2,000 undergraduate students who enrich their learning at University of Saskatchewan because they participate in the first-year research experience. There are 4,500 graduate students, more than 200 postdoctoral fellows, and then there are about 1,400 faculty members and other professional staff. And then if you talk about the number of Canada researchers, we have about 140 plus researchers in total, and more than 30 Canada research chairs, which speaks to the amount of money we bring from tri-councils in Ottawa. And when you look at our impact internationally, the team led by Dr. Meghna Ramaswamy and Dr. Darcy Marciniuk really has created an international blueprint that is driving this university to be among the top 5 in the country when it comes to internationally funded research projects, publications, and our impact. That's a tremendous job which they have done over the last many years. And we always think about knowledge mobilization. Patents is one very simple way of measuring how many patents, how many commercialized products. Alex Hayden and her team has really stepped up to move that thing forward. But the more subtle story is about moving things into public policy sphere. The drama, the music, other arts that university has. That's also knowledge which enriches our lives in this country. We are really doing well on that side. Dr. Don Wallin is really focused on building partnerships with the communities in the city and outside of the city to share the scholarship that we do at University of Saskatchewan to help communities become more resilient as we go forward. And then series of Amati concerts I go to, the drama performance by Greystone, and then many art exhibits on campus. Really, which other university can think about having that enrichment on campus? So we are very proud of our ARSA at University of Saskatchewan. It's not one leg, it's a multi-legged stool on which we stand. Some of the examples of the impact. I could stand here all day and talk about one scholar after the another. Dr. Benjamin Hoy in Department of History. He has really changed the notion of one of the longest undefended peaceful border between US and Canada by doing study and investigation through oral history, large data sets, quantitative research to show that actually it's a line in blood and dirt. And that's where he figured out the impact on indigenous peoples, black people, minorities, and immigrants. That border affected them in a very violent way. And his book did win Governor General's book prize for history in this country, the highest honor. And also that he's a very avid video gamer. I don't know when he finds time to do all that. And then there is Dr. Amira Abdul Rasool from College of Engineering. She's a biomedical engineer. Her lifelong mission is to create a wearable, small, artificial kidney. The reason she wants to do that, because about 4 million Canadians suffer from kidney disease. You might want to listen to her TEDx talk, which is very inspirational. Right now, she is developing a membrane that will improve the dialysis that the renal disease patients have to use quite often in their lives. So she is really focused on that, making an impact at that point. As this university impacted the treatment of women who suffer from breast cancer through cobalt-60 therapy, here is Dr. Ron Geyer and Dr. Andrew Kirk, really figuring out a way how to make a difference to people who suffer from Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson. There are many drugs, but they just mask the symptoms. They become ineffective after some time. They are working with their collaborators in Cuba on a drug molecule called erythropoietin, and they're about to go into phase 2 clinical trials. This is the drug that attacks the root cause of the Alzheimer's disease to create a better life for the patients. Tremendous impact over there. This is the research I can get behind. Last year, there was a research project, Dr. Tim Sharble, on asexual reproduction of canola. I really pushed back against that for a variety of reasons. And this is the one I like. They're my colleagues from veterinary biomedical sciences. They were studying a parasite. They found a gene that allows the parasite to get rid of the toxic metabolites and live a very long life. So they are going to use that gene to understand how pets and humans can also use that type of protein to get rid of the toxic metabolites that can cause cancer and many other chronic diseases. Since I am in their department, I am going to be the first one for clinical trial. I can tell you that. Dean, we are giving them more money. Thank you. Over to the next one. As this country really wrestles with ongoing discovery of large number of unmarked graves of indigenous children who was taken from their families into the residential schools. Here is a scholar who is really focused on making a difference to the health and wellness of children within the First Nation, Métis, and Inuit communities. Dr. Wendy Marks is a Canada Research Chair. If you look at her CV, she has received every scholarship that a graduate student or a postdoc can get. She comes from the Anishinaabe First Nations. She is really looking at the health, intergenerational effect, and the chronic stresses on the child that leads to diseases like obesity and diabetes. That's a work which is so impactful. Dr. Wendy Marks is a Canada Research Chair. As I said, we recently recruited her from University of Calgary. I want to cite a couple of examples of national impact that this university already has at the level of public policy. Adam Brassa and Doug Degenstein in physics are building a module. They want to send it up in the space on a NASA satellite. That module will look at air, particles, vapor, and water to predict very unpredictable big climate change, weather change events, which can knock out satellites. So they need $270 million. Dr. Peter Stoichev and our very astute government relations AVP, Sarah Daniels, and I, we built a national consortium to advocate to the government in Ottawa to allocate the money to Canadian Space Agency. It happened in the last budget. It was largely because of the respect that University of Saskatchewan has, because we do it for the good of the nation. It's not a self-serving advocacy we do. And we took it to CSA. Now our colleagues are starting to build the module, which will create large number of graduate studentships, undergraduate scholars will work there, and this gizmo will go up in 2029. And I asked them if they could put my name on it somewhere, but wouldn't agree to that. So, couple of examples. My predecessor, Dr. Karen Chad. She realized that Canada has lost capacity for neutron research. She partnered with McMaster University, which, like us, is a powerhouse when it comes to nuclear sciences. They built a coalition and began to work supported by Fedoric Center for Nuclear Innovation, and she passed the baton to me when I came along. The target was to create an entity called Neutron Canada, which we created last November. We installed the board last year. Now this is the entity which will work with the federal government to ask for investment of hundreds of millions of dollars into neutron research, because as John Root tried to explain to me and I couldn't understand, neutrons can make us handsome and beautiful. But thank you, get that one. And it is the respect of this university in this country that I had the privilege of being on a 7-member advisory panel that submitted a report to Minister Champagne and Minister Duclos on how to improve our federal research support system. And then also on Strategic Science Fund, which was a $1 billion adjudication and allocation, I had an opportunity to be on that as well. Not because I have any stellar credentials, it is the respect of the university in this country that they want us to be on these panels to support the work of the nation when it comes to science and public policy. Good news. Our scholars are there in the media every day, commenting on issues that concern Canadians. Opinion pieces, Globe and Mail to Star Phoenix, stories in CBC radio and the television, and the worldwide media that picks up those stories. From Dr. Lolene Berdahel to Dr. Angie Rasmussen to Dr. Volker Gertz and our President Peter Stoichev, his opinion in Globe and Mail asking for major investments into our science because US and other countries are leapfrogging ahead of Canada through their massive investment. So look at that impact on public policy through these types of opinion pieces. Dr. Ken Coates used to write regularly on issues related to indigenous public policy in this country. And a few examples again, Dr. Jaswant Singh, he is an outstanding mentor. He is really crafting a program to provide mentorship to new faculty members who come to University of Saskatchewan. There is a Space Cube from Engineering College. There is Dr. Suzanne Cresta, former Dean of Engineering, is in there. Drama people are there. Arinjay Banerjee, a bat virologist, truly an emerging global leader. He gave a TEDx talk this year. You might want to Google it and listen to him. What an inspiring leader we have. And he's a product of our own training program at University of Saskatchewan. And then launch of the Opus Incubator as well. Really tremendous stories. I'm just like scratching the surface of things that occurred over the last 12 months. Again, I'm going to cite some funding examples and their impact. Dr. Maureen Reed has a Shirk Partnership Grant. I really took some time to wrap my head around as to how she could put a collaboration with 3 countries, multiple universities, multiple government agencies, including UNESCO, and look at intersectionality of poverty, indigenous peoples, biodiversity, climate change, and the water security piece. So this is a massive project in partnership with the universities in South Africa, Germany, and Canada. Really tremendous story when we look at that. And Dr. Humphrey Fonge and others were successful in the recent grant competition. I'm going to take a second to talk about the CIHR. We generally have not had stellar success with the CIHR. We bring about 8 to 10% of our total funding from CIHR. At many other universities in the country that have a medical school, the average is 25%. So we have quite a bit of progress to make there, but we are working on that. This most recent competition was the first one in more than 10 years that our success rate was higher than the national average. So there is progress through investment, through mentorship, through really encouraging more of our colleagues to try and apply to CIHR. Dr. Ron Borowski has shown an example with the NSERC work that how culture change can put us among the top tier when it comes to success in the competitions. Dr. Veronika Makarova, again, looking at post-pandemic world, how we can serve the linguistic needs of immigrants and refugees who don't have English as their second language. $500,000 from New Frontiers Fund to look at that so that next time an emergency comes of any sort, and there's a wide group of people with different linguistic abilities, how can we provide services to them? Really impactful post-pandemic world work aligned with the United Nations call to really leverage all the science we have to create a more resilient post-pandemic world as we know. This is a shining example. We are among the top 2 universities in the country when it comes to NSERC Create Success. Here is Dr. Ian Stavnes, which is latest 6-year funding, 6-year program funded by NSERC Create to create a program for graduate students, postdocs, and undergrads in the area of agricultural technologies, drones, imaging, biocomputational work, really massive program with international partnerships that he is going to do. This is a special highlight. The partnership between Saskatchewan Agriculture and this university's agriculture researchers, College of Agriculture Bioresources, Crop Development Center, has led to creation of a $20 billion annual export story of agri-food from this country. And last year we got $14 million in funding, strategic research chairs, and really all the research projects. This is a massive return on investment for our province. This is amazing. 500 varieties over 50 years from Crop Development Center. I don't know who else can beat that. Amazing. And then awards. No wonder with that type of work, we are going to be getting Orders of Canada, Saskatchewan Order of Merit, Canadian Academy of Health Sciences, fellowships, and Royal Society of Canada New Scholars, CIHR Leadership Awards, you just name it. I think we really need to ramp up. I call upon the senior leaders in the room to really identify colleagues for nominations to all the fellowships we have in the country. We have so many colleagues who will make an entry into these academies, and then they will make life better for Canadians through their policy work and engagement with all levels of the government. So I really request you to support that work. Rankings is something we don't chase. At this university, we have a sort of ambivalence towards them, but rankings are over there. It's like if a pigeon closes eyes, cat is still there. It's not gone away. So we need to pay attention to that. We are going up every year. And 125 or so spots up in QS ranking this year, for the first time among the top 10 in the country. When you measure simply the dollars coming into a university, that is the highest rank we ever had. Times Higher Education Impact and Sustainability, top 100 in the world. Really impressive story, which has been going on for more than 100 years. So no surprise there, in a way. But we are in modern times. We really are also very savvy when it comes to putting the data packages together to give to the ranking people. And we do the stories which are very impactful as well. Last year's priority, I'm going to give you a short scorecard. You are welcome to send me an email. I will send you a detailed report on each of the priorities, and I will highlight especially the ones in which we were not successful. The first one was, really, we launched our incubator, very busy at this time, and we are also securing funding from federal government and the private sector to fund the incubator, right? The incubator should be able to fund itself. It was really very good. So we are really, we are close to getting $1 million this year to support the work at the incubator. We were not successful, it still bothers me, in Canada First Research Excellence Fund. We went to the final round after 3 rounds of adjudication, but we could not get funding for that. We have done a serious debrief in my team. When the next round of competition comes, I think we will do much better. We are wrapping up the 2 CFREFs at this university in water and in agriculture. This one sort of escaped us. Now we are working with the federal government to ask for sort of one-time investment in the area in which we had made the proposal to begin with. We led Canada's One Health strategy development piece on request from CIHR and Public Health Agency of Canada. We have secured all the matching funds for MSI grants that we got a year or so ago. Vanskeven Institute is active. We are searching for a Canada Research Chair to work at the Vanskeven Institute, and the director search will begin very soon. When we think about investing in early career researchers, we really are, if we look at our international program, about 30% of the grants go to early career researchers to connect with their colleagues in other countries to begin to build those connections at a very early stage. And we have invested in facilitation for social sciences, and we are really working closely with the humanists and the artists to really strongly support the work that they do, including Dr. Carla Rose. She took a group of drama students to Prague. There is an event held every 4 years in Prague. She was one of the 2 professors from this country that curated Canada's exhibit for that event in Prague. Each country can have only 1 exhibit. So you may imagine the respect that this university's artists have. So we supported the journey of that group to Prague in the summer this year. Living Skies postdoc program is up and running. 29 postdocs funded. They are really having great time. We are now trying to secure money from federal government to continue the program in the coming years. CIHR strategy built by Dr. Darcy Marcinek is already showing results through growth in our funding and the success rate with the CIHR. And again, we continue to improve the research ethics. The time has come down. Terry Fonstad has built a plan that the ethics unit will become self-sufficient in the coming couple of years. We have reduced the time on animal care, on the human behavioral side. We will continue to make progress on that piece. I still know there are bottlenecks. I hear you all, and I can assure you the progress will be made in the coming months and years as well. Here's an example of a postdoc recruited through Living Skies program, because a university professor needs to have somebody from outside of the university to mentor a postdoc. This young postdoc, Dr. Saurav Bishwash, came and he said he's here because this is the place he push the boundaries of the knowledge. Working with Dr. Bram Noble and his colleagues in the area of cases, which is on energy sustainability project. Really impressive story, the type of talent we are bringing to University of Saskatchewan with the right kind of programs that we can build today at this university. This is where our inflection point comes. So I have given you the whole story as to where we are, the progress we have made. I want you to think for a moment, we are in a period of financial stability. We are in a period of administrative stability. We are in a period of really stable, excellent relationships with all levels of government. And we are in a period where we can aspire to raise $500 million through a campaign. That tells you that out in the community, with the alumni, with the donors, we have that level of respect and stability in our relationship. So how do we make the best use of this opportunity? So this is what we need to think about. It truly is one of those opportunities that comes every 20, 30 years in the life of a university. So we need to think about that. I think over the next 5 years, we need to do everything at this university with a focus on ARSA. And when people say, well, are we going to be teaching? Of course we are going to be teaching. Our teaching will be excellent, as always. We will do a great job on innovating our curriculum, graduate student mentorship, undergraduate programs. But really it is changing the perspective that when we touch something on this campus, we think about ARSA. The strategy, the planning, and the collaboration will have to change a bit. The strategy for all of this work resides in my office as a Vice President Research. Working with the deans and the associate deans and senior leadership team, we work that. The planning piece comes into play collaboratively with the colleges and schools, and then we really think about resource allocation piece. So this really is the opportunity for us to make a difference. And let's talk a little bit more about the priorities. Again, we are going to focus on our researchers and scholars and artists. You have few bullet points underneath. I want to highlight a couple of examples. We want our newly recruited professors to begin their research projects, artistic work on day one when they get here. So how do we do that? We have designed a program in partnership with the provost office that the moment a faculty member is hired, my office gives them a call, set up a meeting, give them a welcome, and talk about the paperwork that's necessary to get the work underway. And so that their paperwork is done, they have a laboratory identified, they have a studio identified, they come on campus, they get their work underway on July 1st. We even help them get an undergraduate student so that they have somebody to work with on a thesis, honors thesis project. That's how we give them a really positive, fast start, and then they can get on with their grant writing and so forth. We are going to work with David Stack's office, David is there, and Julian Demke to improve the governance and the legal frameworks around our large research projects. And this is a project we are working with Davin Mescal to make sure we do not create a risk for the academy. We have management on all those pieces. We have not been that good in the past couple of times, but we are going to change that as we move forward. Then we are really going to talk about the impact of ARSA. The strategic plan built by Heather Pearson when she was in my office, now she is our AVP, that is the strategic plan. Now Leslie Ann and her team are working on it as a collaborative across the university to make sure that the stories get out. That builds reputation. That's when government pays attention. That's when more fundraising occurs. So we are really getting very good at that. I remember days when Catherine Warden used to be the one person writing all the stories. Now we have much more capacity at this time at this university to get it done. When we look at, again, revenue and support, I want to take a moment to talk about a very memorable event. I don't think I will forget it for a long time. The campaign launch at the Marlis Belcher place. The vibe in the room was as if like we can conquer the world. It was unbelievable. The exhibits put together by Vido and others, everybody was in those exhibits, trying to wear the suit that people wear in a high containment lab. The alumni, the partners, the city people, Cheryl Hamlin, I'm sure she's here somewhere, really leading this campaign, and we are all behind it. And she tells me that at research-intensive universities, about 60% of the funding that donors give is built around research. So we need to get our stories out. $500 million campaign at University of Saskatchewan. I think we are going to meet the goal in the next year and a half or so. Dr. Karen Chad left me a note when she passed the baton to me that, Baljit, we have not made as much progress in Indigenous people's signature area as we would have liked to. I gave you examples of Canada researchers, 3 of them. I gave you examples of working with Van Skeven Institute. I gave you example of Dawn Wallin really taking that whole piece in her hands. I think we are going to make good progress. This is a priority for me in the coming year to increase the representation of Indigenous scholars in the leadership at OVPR, really support the scholars to come together and really provide them with everything they need to elevate their game. This is a major commitment from my office for this year. I kept this one at the last. We need to change the way we work. So far, our ARSA has gone up, where colleges did something, schools did something. Dr. Karen Chad led very large projects, CFREPs and SARCs. We can't grow anymore with that type of approach. So at SLF Summit recently in August, we are thinking about that my office will support deans and associate deans to develop their college goals and targets. It always does not need to be dollars. It will be very different in School of Public Policy, School of Public Health, or in Veterinary Medical College. But we need to have intentionality as to where we are going as a college. Then we need to think about the infrastructure that we have on this campus, the centers and the institutes. I think VIDO possibly has, I don't know how many hundreds of millions of dollars of one of its kind infrastructure. We have Canadian Light Source, we have the Fedoric Center, the Water Institute, the Food Institute, unbelievable. How do we bring those big blocks into the campus to make the best use of them and reduce our cost of infrastructure build? How can we do that? And then College of Grad Studies, a major strategic move at this university that Peter has really helped happen, bring the College of Grad Studies in alignment with the research office. So we are going to be really looking forward to the leadership of Dean Debbie Burstein as to how we can galvanize that connection between grad education, postdoctoral studies, and the ARSA enterprise at this university. So what I'm advocating for here is that from today, over the next many months, we are going to think very differently about the ARSA enterprise. It's planning, it is resource allocation, it's measurement, eventually in a very sportive manner. This is what will take us to the next level in this country, where we always need to be somewhere in number 6, 7, 8 among U15, or globally somewhere around 100 to 150 rank, and all those things come into play. And within that, we are bringing an international focus like of which we have not done in the past. By focusing on Bangladesh, India, and Germany, we are forming very strategic partnerships. Last week, there were 2 presidents of University of Bonn and University of Frankfurt in town here. They really want to collaborate with us, everything from quantum to health sciences to agriculture to water and to dependency studies. One of the most important thing of interest to them is our scholars who work in indigenous space. Their meeting with Dr. Bidwell and Bobby Henry and Bradford was really uplifting. Their meeting with Dr. Angela Jaime was really uplifting. So we are being sought as a partner in these top-tier institutions around the globe when we work with them. This is sort of a layout again, building the targets, developing the multi-year plan, bringing centers and the signature areas into the story. Signature areas are very active at this point. The leadership is in place, we provided seed funding to them, and now we have to think about how do we align our faculty complement with signature areas. Now Dr. Irini and I are going to be co-leading the faculty complement development at this university so that it can speak to teaching, research, service, and really talk about interdisciplinary platforms that we have through the centers, institutes, and signature areas. And we have centers like Canadian Centre for Rural Agriculture Health. There's none like this in the country. So really we are sitting on this massive infrastructure. We need to mobilize it for the benefit of the society in the coming months and years. And then I really want to speak, I've spoken about the team that works here, the VP, Cheryl Hamlin, Greg Fowler. Greg's team looks after all the facilities on campus. I mean, the water comes out of tap in the morning for a graduate student, Greg's team is making sure it happens. And then I spoke about Cheryl and Dr. Irene's work. And in my office, you have spoken about all the people who really support the work that we do. Their names are up on the screen. You see them every day. I don't micromanage anything. They're leaders in their own rights. They have their ideas, they advance things, they collaborate with everybody, and they move things forward every time of the day when they get to do that. We are into a multi-year financial planning in my office. We have multi-year targets for things. It really is a very inspiring story at this moment at the University of Saskatchewan. And if we go, this is how we collaborate. I mean, the provost and I don't even have to send a memo as to which color to wear. And so we just know we are going to be red, and we are going to run into Dr. Jake Moore in front of the gallery, and we are going to be there. And can you find better dressed provost and VPR in this country? Really? I mean, think about that, right? And so the collaborative piece is the key. The silos don't work for us. If we are going to grow as an institution, we need to disrupt that. We need to stop thinking that a dollar sitting in my account is my dollar. It is in the service of the University of Saskatchewan, and we should always be thinking about that. And with that, I thank you very much. I know it was a bit longer presentation, but thank you. I really wanted to get through a lot. I know you have questions, I hope, and or points for me to take away. I really wanted to look at Peter. I have not made eye contact with him so far. Peter. You're going to say something nice about me.
That means I'm supposed to say something.
I think so.
Okay. Is this working? Don't need it. Okay.
You don't need it.
I'll
Okay.
just belt it out. That's okay.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for being here. I really look forward to the questions and Beljeet's answers to them. But you're all here because in one way or another, you're either deeply engaged with the research enterprise of this university, you're contributing to it by being a researcher, by being a leader in one way or another, by bringing students on board, graduate students on board, helping with the communications of research and so on. So I thank all of you for being here and creating a packed house to hear all of the great things that Beljeet is talking about. I'll just key on a few things that he said. First of all, thanks to the fine arts folks. Darren, thank you very much for conducting this. This is working now? Good, okay. We have many ways of building the fine arts into a lot of the research, scholarly, and artistic work that goes on at this university, and I'll just give you a couple of examples. They have to do with the synchrotron, and I know that we have the synchrotron leadership here today. But if you drive by the synchrotron, you see a huge installation by Eli Bornstein, who used to be the chair of the Art and Art History Department here, still very active at 100 years of age. And that installation must be 100 feet by 30 feet, something like that, bright colors. The synchrotron has had a writer in residence, has had an artist in residence, and we're constantly looking for ways to ensure that the fine arts and artistic creativity and all other forms of research, scholarly and artistic work engage with one another. So that's the first thing I want to say, and I want to thank you, Beljeet, for making sure that that's really demonstrated here. Second thing is, you mentioned the kinds of op-eds that many of us have been writing and the ways in which we've been trying to get out there in the public space to encourage an understanding of the importance, the vitality of the research that is done at a great university like this one and has been done for many years. And I just want to encourage all of you to think positively about the role that you can play there. Leslie Ann Schlosser is here. She didn't know that I'd be saying that. But, you know, working to make the public more aware of and understand the value proposition of the great research, scholarly, and artistic work that goes on at this university is something that we can all engage in. There's the conversation as one venue, and there are many others as well, outside of the more usual and at times comfortable for us modes of academic circulation, which are also extremely positive and important. Next thing I wanted to say is, and Baljeet talked about it, the momentum that's been created by everybody in this room over the last several years, bringing us to a point where if you look at all of the independent indicators that, as Baljeet was saying, we don't chase, but still have to acknowledge, the rankings, all of them, we've moved up. The QS rankings, I don't know that there's ever been a university, and certainly there wasn't one in this past year, that moved up 128 spots, whatever it was, in 1 year. That's really extraordinary. And it can't happen to a university that is not research intensive. All sorts of important things go on at this university. Baljeet talked about them. But the research, scholarly, and artistic work that goes on here is one of the main reasons why we can move in the rankings that way. So I'm not saying the rankings are the goal, but I'm asking all of you to take real confidence in the fact that that happened. He mentioned the CFI MSI funding, Major Science Initiatives funding. We take 25% of all of the federal funding in that program that's available to 97 universities in this country. That's extraordinary. And it doesn't happen without all of you, all of us being really intentional. Last thing I just wanted to emphasize, that the theme of collaboration. Back when we were moving through the processes of landing the 2 CFREFs, one in water security and one in food security, the reason we were successful, and the reason, although Baljeet despairs about it, we were this close to being successful in the latest round, is because we are able to show that when it comes to research, we are highly collaborative and highly interdisciplinary. And back to the beginning of this event where we had the musical performance, it's that kind of interdisciplinary that drives the creativity that in turn brings us the kind of success that we've been seeing. So finally, Baljeet, thank you for your leadership in all of this. And thanks everybody for all the leadership and participation in RSAW that we see today at this university.
Thank you, Peter. Happy to take any questions, comments, suggestions in the time we have. Yeah, okay. Could you say your name, please, and then,
Yeah, Mark Boland from the School of, or from the Department of Physics and Engineering Physics and the Canadian Light Source. So thank you for excellent presentation. And my challenging question is, could you please comment on the role you see for graduate students in the RSOR program, and particularly on the need to properly fund them, at least to a minimum wage or some tuition scholarships to help, because in my opinion they do a lot of the research.
Sure. That has become a national issue and some sort of a crisis when it comes to funding graduate education. There are multiple channels of advocacy which are taking place right now in this country. Peter, as the head of the U15 group of executives, really spearheading that piece to lobby the government to increase the funding for graduate students from the tri-councils and otherwise. The report, that panel, the Bouchard report that I was a member of, the major recommendation in that report was to really attend to this need if Canada is going to remain competitive in the recruiting and developing and retaining talent in this country. There are student groups. I saw a tweet this morning. They were meeting with Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland about advocating for more funding for graduate students. My optimism is that in the next 12 months, we will see some action on this file. Now, within the university, I think Dr. Debbie Burstyn has refined some policies over the last 2 years. She has done phenomenal amount of work since she has come to University of Saskatchewan to really create stability, multi-year funding allocation to graduate students through departments, and I hope we will see some positive gains in the coming year. Last point, I had an opportunity to meet with Premier Scott Moe in June, and one of the recommendation and point I made was to think about a mechanism where provincial government can support the attraction of high-quality talent from anywhere around the globe, and funding our own students at a much better rate than other jurisdictions, because that's the only way somebody is going to come to a place other than going to US or Germany or Norway. Every country is making massive investments in research talent development. So it's a pressing issue, Mark. And in between watching Ashes cricket games, I was thinking about that. Thank you. You can count on that. That was great matches. We enjoyed communicating with each other. So there was one more hand up here. Yes, please.
Hi, Baljeet. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. I'm Merle Massey. I'm at the Canadian Centre for Rural and Agricultural Health here at the university. My question is actually to do with the research strength of the university. As we have fewer and fewer openings for faculty, we have more and more PhDs who are ending up in staff positions across the university. And it's a high proportion, and it's growing. It's not just at this university, it's across all universities. It's a real opportunity for University of Saskatchewan to kind of get out in front of this and be a leader, and to find a way, if possible, to make sure that those research chops are supported, to also put forward research grants to conduct active research. They're already doing it, either in support or but to make sure that the mechanisms here at the University of Saskatchewan reflect that, measure that, and support that. If you could respond.
That's an excellent point. I have a couple of points to say. We actually have lost some of the faculty complement in the last 5 years. Now we will develop a plan, Dr. Irene and I and Devin Mescal, and with the deans and directors to capture that. Globally or nationally, about 20 to 25, 30% of PhDs and postdocs get into faculty positions. That's where programs like Living Skies Postdoctoral Fellows Program to bridge a postdoc or PhD student with the world outside, so that they can unleash their creativity in so many ways other than being a faculty member. The last point that you have made, which is really the point of deep importance, is to find a mechanism to keep them, create a place for them. I know like 3-4 people on this campus who, given the opportunity tomorrow, will be successful in bringing grants from Ottawa. But we have not been able to find something for them within the collective agreement, and we have a vice provost faculty relation, Dr. Scott Walsworth, and so maybe that is something I certainly will ask him, whether there is a provision and a possibility we can create positions like American University do it all the time. They will give anybody a 5-year appointment if you can bring a grant, and you will have a lab. As long as you have a grant, then you're gone, right? So I think we don't want to be that harsh and brutal, but we need to find a way to really capitalize on this talent we have. Thank you, Marla, as always, great point. Yeah. Any other comments? While you're thinking, I really want to thank you. Someday, I hope you all get a chance to be the VP research at this university. It is such an inspiring thing. Like my people know in my office, that you can just look around everywhere. You run into somebody at the Tim Hortons shop, and I'm about to buy a honey cruller. You hear a great idea. Like anybody who walks into my office every day has a creative idea. They want to figure out how to implement that. And this is just wonderful at this university today to have that type of creativity. We are making vaccines. We are developing new materials at synchrotron. We are pushing the boundaries on quantum. There's a company in India who is working with Stephen Rayan to think about setting shop in Saskatoon. Think about that. Peter was in Israel. NR Jean came and set up shop, not anywhere else, but in Saskatoon. So I think this is truly an inflection point. We need to really capitalize on this opportunity for all variety of reasons and for all sorts of outcomes that we need. And the province, I have not even spoken as to what's happening in province. In the last 12 months, about 40,000 new people have moved to Saskatchewan. I mean, that's like a massive immigration, and it's just picking up speed. The tech companies in town, the agri-food sector, the technologies on agriculture side, public policy story, the drama, the art, the music, it's just amazing. So we need to just figure out a way of capturing it all, forming right kind of partnerships and moving it forward. So I'm going to be talking to all of you in the coming year very, very intensely as we begin to think about the next 5 years. There's a lots of work ahead for us, but it's a work which is very productive and positive. It's not crisis at all. It's a joyful work. So my request to you is that please think about that, write to me how we can move it forward. And with that, I thank you very much. I thank you, Dean McNeil, and all the musicians and the students, and my team, Leslie Ann, and everybody who worked so hard to put it all together. I hope I did justice to all it. Thank you. Thank you.